The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.
This is the show where the joys, the sorrows, and the lessons of life are laid out for your inspection. On this week's edition of One-on-One, we discuss a difficult subject with a mother who has been through hell and high water with the loss of her son. Now she is on a mission to spread the word about post-traumatic stress disorder and save lives. On December 10th, 2012, Lisa and Jeff Naslund were hit with the worst news a parent could ever receive.
Sheriff came to the back door to let us know our son just killed himself.
This story is told in the highly acclaimed documentary Dylan, produced by filmmaker Tom Zwinke and aired on KPTS. 25-year-old Dylan Naslund had served as a U.S. Army sergeant on the front lines of the war in Afghanistan. Several months after returning home, friends and family say he started to change. He was depressed, abusing alcohol, and behaving erratically. Then it all ended tragically with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest. Now, through their grief, Dylan's parents have emerged as fighters in the war against PTSD. They are devoted to helping save other veterans and their families from a similar fate. Lisa Naslund is here to share what they've learned through the darkest times and how they have emerged to find hope and purpose in the face of tragedy. On this edition, One-on-One. Thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, joined by a guest with a powerful message about surviving loss and raising awareness. Lisa Naslund, thanks for being here with us on One-on-One.
Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure to be here.
Take us back to 2011 when Dylan, your son, returned home from the war. What about him that was different?
Well, in 2011, he got back in the fall, and things seemed to be okay there. He was excited to be back. He had gone to war and was thrilled to be back home. It was the early part of 2012 is we noticed that things were different with him. He had always been happy-go-lucky. He was just somebody you really enjoyed being around. And as the months rolling into 2012, we noticed that he just was changed. He was a little more short-tempered. He was more agitated. Now knowing, maybe a little depressed. There was just some issues there that we, for quite some time, did not know. We thought it was something that we would need to give him some time. We expected that when you come back from war, you could be changed. But there was no way to prepare for what would come.
So what did you think was happening?
We just thought it was just going to take time. We knew he didn't talk much about his time overseas in his tour, but we knew that they had seen and done some rough things. And so we just thought giving him time to get through some of that, that with time things would settle back in.
But things did not settle in.
But no, they did not.
What happened?
By August of 2012, Dylan had the struggles that he was going through were just continued to get worse and worse. And I think of drinking as one of them. Things had just become so overwhelming for Dylan. And by August of 2012, he had become suicidal. That was the first that we would learn how extensive that he was suffering. We got him to the VA, and from there, he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So it was the first time that we would learn that there was a name for the struggles he was going through. It was the first time that we would learn or hear of the words post-traumatic stress disorder. And so he was eventually released from his care with the VA, brought home some counseling and some medication, and for the following next few months, we thought Dylan was doing much better. But what had happened, Victor, was he had got better at hiding it. He had got better at hiding what he was going through. Mm-hmm. And by December 10th, 2012, he would take his life.
It's been 5 years now since that happened, and I'm sorry to hear that again.
Thank you.
But how has life changed? Has it gotten better for you and your family? Or does it even get better?
I wouldn't say that it gets better, but we have found a new normal.
Describe that.
It takes time. You know, when he's not around for a lot of, the holidays, for example, or just different things, and we spend a lot of our Sunday fun days together as a family. That's always been very, very important to our family, and Dylan is no longer part of those. It's just there's always that little piece missing. So we find this new normal to adjust to not having Dylan around, which has led into some of the work that we're doing since his death.
And we'll talk about that work in a moment, but in my introduction, I said that you have found hope and purpose as a result of what you're doing, and that is this work, as a result of this tragedy. Describe it, this hope and this purpose that you found.
We unify together as a family. We have heard from other families and that have had the same struggles as we have living the similar journey in loss. And so being able to help others is helping us to heal. I hope that makes sense.
Right. So how are you helping others?
We have helped others in multiple ways. One of them is doing peer mentoring. I'm always there for somebody to talk to. Even when Dylan, when he was going through his struggles, felt as though he was alone in what he was struggling with. In the loss of losing Dylan, there are times you feel alone that somebody just can't understand that pain. And we want others to know that we are there. We want that lending ear, that somebody to talk to can be so healing. So in one of the ways that we are helping is in mentoring others. Okay,
so now to that tragic day, Lisa. You were talking with Dylan about the struggles that he was having. And here's a clip from the film that was first broadcast a few years ago, produced by Tom Zwinke, broadcast on KPTS about what that whole story. And this is what you said. Let's take a look.
And Dylan says, "Mom, you don't understand." No, I don't understand. But I'm trying. You don't get it, Mom. No, I don't. But honey, you've got to start helping yourself. We're here to help you, but you've got to help yourself. I left his house. And a few hours later, the sheriff came to our back door. that became the worst day of my life.
That was your reaction then. What is your reaction now when you watch that?
Still very painful. But what Dylan was saying and was in agreement with, that I couldn't understand the pain and what he was going through. And still to this day, I think I have a better understanding now in losing Dylan. But what I was saying to him is I have not been there and done that and seen what he's gone through. I haven't, you know, what he had to endure, I can't comprehend. But I was wanting to let him know that, honey, we're here for you. We want to help you. We want to do what we can. And I was just urging, I think there was some, as a mother, you just want to help your child. And there was feeling a loss of trying to help him.
Right.
And yet in the same understanding, I was needing him to help himself too. What I have learned since that conversation with Dylan is that the invisible wounds that he was living with are far deeper than any of us can understand unless we've been in those shoes.
Do you understand it any better today than you did yesterday?
A little better, but I'll never fully understand what he and others like him have gone through.
Did it ever cross your mind that Dylan might have taken his own life?
No. Dylan, he loved life. I mean, he was a joy to be around. He loved people. He loved what he did. He was not the one that would do this. He is not the one that would complete suicide. And so from that, I think not just our family, but his friends and others that knew him, my goodness, if this could happen to Dylan, it could happen to anyone.
The worst day of your life was then. Where did you go from there? What happened after all that?
In the first 5 days after Dylan died, there was 5 different soldiers that came to us and said they too had the same thoughts and feelings as Dylan, and because of Dylan, they were going to go get help. That's in the first 5 days. That's before we have buried Dylan. And since his death, we began hearing from others. Again, like I said, if Dylan could do this, anybody could. And so we started hearing from others that said because of Dylan's life and death, they were going to go get help. And it sparked, first it was shocking that how many are going through these issues. How many of our soldiers, our veterans, service members are living with these issues. It was incredibly shocking. At the time, in 2012, it was reported that we were losing 22 veterans a day, Victor. Mm-hmm. 22 were feeling like Dylan a day. 22 families were going through what we're going through a day. So in these soldiers and these service members and these veterans that are coming to us, we knew that we had to do something to help end this epidemic of veteran suicides.
So had you heard of PTSD before?
If we had heard it, we had not paid attention to it. So my answer, I often get asked that, and my answer is no, or if I had never paid attention. When Dylan was diagnosed in August of 2012 with PTSD, we quickly started educating ourselves. We started learning what we can. What is this? If there's a name for something, we can heal, right? You know, there's help. And we continue, even 5 years later, learning more and more about post-traumatic stress and how it affects our veterans and the different levels of post-traumatic stress. Now, I'm also quick to say that just because you're a veteran and just because you have served overseas, not everyone comes back with post-traumatic stress.
Correct.
But there are way too many that do and that live with those struggles.
And so because of the death of your son, you decided to establish Operation Engage America, an organization that is worldwide or reaching nationwide, and you get calls from all over the world. Tell us about this.
What had happened was, like I said, Dylan had died on December 10th of 2012. June 10th of 2013, in researching post-traumatic stress and what is going on, I would learn of another family in California that had just lost their dear son. His name was Daniel Somers, Sergeant Daniel Somers. His parents are Howard and Jean Somers from San Diego. And I reached out to the mom, to Jean, in condolences, you know, and thinking, oh my goodness, not another family, not another soldier. So reached out in condolences, and we quickly became friends. And what would happen from there, Victor, is as two sets of parents, we would start to realize that there was resources and organizations out there that could have or may have been able to help Dylan and Daniel. That there was organizations and resources out there that could have helped us as the loved ones, the caregivers, the family, the friends. But we did not know about those when our sons were alive. It was after they had died. So together as two sets of parents, we founded Operation Engage America. And what we do is we connect the veterans, the service members, their families with these resources that we're learning about to help others find what they need to be able to help themselves.
And how is that going?
Incredible. We, the first year, in 2014, we held our first two events, one in San Diego, one in Des Moines, Iowa. And they were so well received. And we started, it was even more so than what happened in the day of the events. We brought in all these organizations, all these resources. We got it out there to the community, to the veterans, to the families, those that came in need of resources. And after the event was over with, we continued hearing from others, other veterans, service members, families, that couldn't make it to the event, but they have, Uncle Joe needs some help or whatever. And so it started growing, and we started hearing from people all over the country. The documentary that had aired from KPTS was now making, getting all over, and it was spreading all over the country as well. And so all of this together, we were now reaching people all across the country. And I heard from two soldiers in Germany that had watched the KPTS documentary. And they said they too were struggling. So that was powerful to us.
So what are you learning, or have you learned more about PTSD?
It is, there are so many variables to it. It affects everybody differently, but we still, there's a lot of research that still needs to be done. But what most importantly is we need people to realize to reach out and get the help that you need. You know, when Dylan was first struggling, he was scared to reach out. And back in 2012.
Could it be because he was embarrassed, or he just
Yes,
didn't know where
yeah.
to go?
You know, it's hard for me to say this, but, you know, sometimes the veteran feels weak. Using Dylan as an example, you know,
And you
Iowa
should be
farm
that
boy, and I'm rough and tough
strong
and
military person.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And, you know, when Dylan and I were very close and we often talked, and, you know, why can't I get over this? I signed up to go. I loved what I did, but why are these nightmares and flashbacks, you know, those really affected Dylan deeply.
Describe some of those flashbacks. Did you see him in action, so to speak? Did you hear his story? What did he say was happening?
One night I did, it's funny you asked that. One night I did, Dylan was staying at our house, and I had heard something in the middle of the night. It woke me up. And I realized it was coming from Dylan's room. And I let him be. And the next morning I asked Dylan, I says, what was that noise I heard? And he turned flushed. And he says, you heard that? And I'm like, yeah, what was that? He says, Mom, that was one of my nightmares. He said the enemy was coming to him in his sleep and was cutting off his body parts.
Oh. That should make anyone scream at night.
Yeah. And so what I heard was a noise that had come from Dylan.
Right.
I don't often share that. But one of the reasons I just did share this with you, Victor, is that for those watching, you're not alone in what you're going through. We want others to reach out, get help. There is help available.
Now, coming back to Operation Engage America, you have, I understand, have helped save thousands of lives. Tell us about that.
I cherish each one of them in my heart. And I wish there are some stories I wish I could tell you, Victor, but I won't. But with Operation Engage America, just recently I had a veteran that we were working with, and he was feeling helpless and hopeless. And we got him connected with some resources, some organizations to help him with his mental health issue. And he told me later on, he says, you know, Lisa, he says, I served in the military. I had no idea these resources that you got me connected with, this connection that you connected me, I had no idea that was even available.
You tell us about your family.
Our family, oh, my pride and joys. My husband Jeff and I have been married 33 years. We have 2 daughters and 8 grandchildren.
So Dylan was your only son?
Dylan was our only son. You know, and there was a time, Victor, when early on when we had lost Dylan, our grandson, 4 years old at the time, he had come running in the house, and he was so excited to see Gigi, the goofy grandma. And I was really sad that day, and I just was really in a dark place. And I noticed him sat at the table a few minutes later. It hit me really hard that here was our grandchild. He still deserved to have his grandparents, his papa and Gigi. Our daughters still deserve to have our parents. It would have been very easy to fall into a very dark place. And in that moment, we chose, and Dylan would want us to, we need to continue to live. We need to continue to enjoy life with our family. We still need to continue to enjoy our grandchildren. And we spend a lot of family quality time doing so. And in the same fact that losing Dylan has heightened our responsibilities of being a family. And what does it mean to be a family? And the strength and bond that we need as a family.
So what is the best advice now you have for other families dealing with PTSD and other families whose sons or daughters are considering joining the military?
First and foremost, do your research. Get connected. A lot of our veteran service organizations too, our auxiliaries, our legions, our VFWs, and there's, there is a lot of organizations out there supporting our military. Get involved with some of them. Just educate yourself. There is a wonderful organization that I wish I would have known about, and I'm not trying to promote certain ones, but Psych Armor is an organization out of San Diego, California, that I wish I would have known about, to educate and know what to do and what not to do, just educating ourselves is key component. Reach out and talk with others.
So how is the Naslund family doing today?
We are doing very well. We, like I said, we have our 8 grandchildren. We take pride in our time together. We're doing well. Dylan continues to be a part of our life.
And I see you wearing his dog tag.
Yes, yeah. Carry that with me.
That must
often.
be very meaningful to you.
It's very comforting. Yeah. I also have a coin that he had received, and I often carry that in my pocket.
What does it say on it?
I don't have my glasses, Victor, so.
Yeah, let's see if I can see.
That's through the American Legion.
Let me see that now.
Yeah, that's.
Appreciation of your military service and sacrifice. On that note, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us one-on-one.
It has been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And again, our condolences.
Thank you.
And we hope that you'll be proud because of the service that your son provided to our country.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this special edition of One-on-One. I'm Victor Hogstrom. If you have a question or comment, send us an email at oneononekpts.org. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope to have you back next time for another meaningful conversation. Until then, thanks for watching.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.
Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you.